It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So I have an interesting, fascinating, and incredibly unique woman that we're talking with today. And we got introduced through mutual friends. And Denise Schonwald spent 3 decades as a registered nurse in the healthcare industry. And then about 12, 13, 14 years ago, she completely transformed her focus into really the mental health space, working with families. She's a public speaker, a spiritual teacher, a family mediator. Most importantly, she is compassionate about the wellness of families coping with emotional toil. She has truly recreated her entire career. And Denise, I'm so excited to talk to you today because so many of us, myself included, have recreated ourselves in various ways. And you stayed within the base industry and just went in a completely different direction. You started your own business, etc. So first of all, let me welcome you to the show. Thank you for joining me here today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Can we start at the beginning of this transformation a dozen plus years ago? What was the catalyst? What was the catalyst that drove you to say, I can't do healthcare in this way anymore. I want to do it differently?
First of all, I loved being a nurse. I was a critical care nurse for years and years. Loved it. But years of spending up all night long, the grind, the lifting, it really is. It's a tough profession. And as time went on and I started to get older, I knew that I had to think about doing something else. But what? Like, how do I transition from a very busy, I love the critical thinking aspect of nursing. I loved diagnosing. And then what could I do next? I thought about being a nurse practitioner. That didn't really appeal to me, which a lot of nurses do. And for me, mental health just seemed like the perfect fit.
So what were some of the first steps you took as, like when you said, it's time to do something else? I loved what I've done. Mental health seems to be calling me. Like, what were those first steps you take? Because I think so often as women, as leaders, as professionals, we say there's time for something else. What happened? How do I do this?
Yes. And a lot of times you have to go back to what am I good at?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, I'm really good at thinking quickly on my feet because we had to do that. I'm really good at working with families because in critical care, we worked a lot with families and physicians and so forth. I'm good at working with people. What can I do where it won't be so difficult on me physically and I can still get the intellectual challenge and connection of working with people? And when mental health came up, I was like, this is it. This is the perfect fit for me.
So tell me so how did you get started? What were some of the things? I'm right. How do we start building a practice? How did you get started?
And I would say that's the most challenging part because when you start to, again, have your own practice, I realized that when I was in nursing, I didn't have to market myself. Patients came in, I never had to say, please come, be my patient.
Right.
But yet when I had my own practice, if you look up for a therapist, you'll find 30. So what sets me apart? I also have a home office. So it's not like I'm in a building and I have people sort of referring to me. It was something that I had to build from my home, basically. And so how do you do that?
And how did you do it?
And well, one of the things that I did back in 2020 is I wrote my first book.
Okay.
Because I feel like that sort of established a good connection. Then I thought about it and I thought, I don't want to start seeing clients and then say, would you like to buy my book for $15? Because I felt like that just sort of seemed like I was exploiting like what I did and
right.
asking
I get
to.
it.
And so I thought about it and I thought, you know what? I'm going to buy books by the case and I'm just going to give them out. And I'm going to have people email me. People have heard me on a podcast and I'm just going to mail them out. And the books now have gone as far as South Africa, Australia, one to Canada, because the platform is to really bring mental health to the forefront and awareness. And so I'm doing that with the book, and it's also been very key to my business.
So by just giving them away, when you say it's been key to your business, what are you seeing as the results in your business from this?
I get more referrals for people that said, "Oh, I had a friend that shared your book with me,"
Oh,
or "I heard you on a podcast and then I read your book and I felt like it would be a really good connection." Because as you know, when you're looking for a therapist, you want some sort of you want rapport with them, but you don't really know, what their style is and what their belief and value system is. So by just mailing out a book, it gave people a really good understanding of how I practice, how I think, sort of how what my focus is. And that for me has really been key.
so what's your vision for your practice moving forward now? You've been in this 13 years and more. You've have a global reach. I mean, what's your vision? And then I want to ask you, like, what's working for you now?
Well, my long-term vision is to really sort of get national presence, to be one of the people that are referred to when mental health needs to be spoken, what needs to be, the truth needs to be told. And I think as a society and as a nation, mental health is something that's really sort of lacking.
Yeah.
Education, awareness, and I feel like that's something that I want to be instrumental with. So that's sort of my long-term focus.
For your practice now, what is working for you in building? What else is, or I should probably put it as what else is working?
Well, I also have a national license. So that has really been,
Oh,
and I did that when I first went into practice. I was licensed in Florida, and then I also took a second set of boards to be nationally licensed, thinking that if I ever moved, I would want to have that reach.
that is brilliant, by the way. That is such forward thinking vision because I know that's a glitch for so many in the mental health field. Oh, and people seeking support. And they're like, oh, no, no, I can't work with them because I live here and they're not technically,
Mhm.
and it becomes an obstacle that it shouldn't be.
Yes. And I heard from so many people that would move into Florida and say, unfortunately, I never got licensed here. And I thought, I don't want to do that. I want to just make sure I have everything covered. I kept my registered nursing license active because I thought, you never know. I might need to bring that back into the forefront. And then I became a family mediator,
So
thinking
what
that,
would tell me about that?
well, that actually came about because the courts were really trying to get mental health involved.
Right.
Like, if there's any sort of dispute, can they get a mental health counselor in to sort of help the family outside the courtroom come to some sort of conclusion or agreement? And in order to do that, I had to become a family mediator.
Okay.
I probably could help patients if they wanted to get divorced, but I really shy away from that because I also do a lot of counseling. But I have the family mediating certificate and I do a lot of that also. Works a lot with parental reunification and those kind of cases.
That's great. So, what has surprised you? I mean, your career has been truly focused on health and wellness, which I greatly admire. I have to tell you, like complete
Mhm.
transparency. I greatly admire because I think people who are dedicated to the health and wellness field are special people. It's people who really
Mhm.
want to see good health. And I always think about mind, body, spirit, right?
Yes,
It's
yes.
it's all of us. It's the whole piece of us.
Mhm.
It's not just, we think about our heart or, or whatever it is at different times of our lives, women's health, et cetera, et cetera. But when we think about mind, body, spirit, we think about the whole thing. And I so admire for you to stay dedicated in the wellness field of
Mhm.
seeing people as well. But in building this business in this practice, what has surprised you as a woman leader?
I think the biggest surprise has been how we do not connect body, mind, and spirit. I mean, people come in, I see people of all income levels, all races, all genders, and it's just amazing. And we're getting sicker and sicker as time is going on. I'm seeing children younger and younger getting very, very sick. And I think we're just overstimulated. And so the surprise has been that we're just not combining all of our talents as physicians and clinicians and so forth to help people really get on a path of wellness. And that sort of has been my passion throughout my entire career.
What can we do? What can we do as human beings for being proactive for ourselves? What are some tips here?
I think the best tip I can give, and the one that everybody's going to go and shake their head, is really to disconnect from technology. As much as we love it, it's almost like junk food for the mind, and it
Yeah.
really is causing a lot of anxiety. And unfortunately, the counter to anxiety is a lot of depression and procrastination. And it's an easy thing to do, but it's very difficult because every time we sit down and we have a minute, we're picking up our phones or getting on our emails
Yeah.
or text messages. So it's been a way for us to connect, but it's also been very difficult on the body and the mind and spirit because we're not being still.
Okay, so if we take that and run with it, okay, in the reality of our busy, fast paced world,
Mhm.
how can we narrow that down into a small action step?
I recommend this to everyone. Take an hour in the morning and just completely disconnect. Just be still. Have your coffee, talk to your partner, have some time to maybe read or meditate. It's a very difficult when you start to think about it. It sounds daunting, but it actually really sort of gives you that space to ground and get ready for the day. It calms the nervous system down, and then at I don't know 7:30, then get on your phone, tablet, and because obviously we're very busy and we need to keep up with the work, but it's important to take a little time during the day, in the morning and at night, to be still.
So, Denise, what is one small step we can take? Because when we think about like stepping out of technology, it's like, the first thing is you throw your hands up in your arms up, your hands up in the air, and say, "How could I do that? My
Mhm.
work, my life, my children, my bed, everything's connected." So, what's something small we can do?
One little tiny bit of information that I can give that it will be very powerful is to take an hour in the morning and completely disconnect. When I wake up in the morning, I take about 15-20 minutes and I do some meditation. And then for the next hour, I'm completely off of all kind of electronics. I have my coffee, I'll visit with my husband, and I just sort of take some time to just sort of let the nervous system get calm. Because then around 7:30, obviously my day starts. I'm very, very busy. The calls are coming in and life gets busy. In the evening, I keep my cell phone out of my bedroom because it's just
Mhm.
too tempting and it's too disturbing. Sometimes I'll hear from people at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's something that I really need to separate. And for me, that has been very helpful.
I love that. I love that. I love the tip of keeping your cell phone out of your bedroom.
Mhm.
And even if like you got to get on do not disturb, you got to stop it. You
Mhm.
have to stop it. I know for myself in the morning, I very often read quietly. I do some writing quietly. I don't know if I do a full 60 minutes. I'm probably going to say I don't, but I do read quietly. I do some writing in the morning. I try to do a short meditation in the morning because I find once I start, I'm emitting an enormous amount of energy.
Yes.
And that's what grounds and builds that energy. I try to move a lot of mornings. I do some sort of exercise,
Mhm.
but I will say my exercise is very often on a video.
Mhm. Yeah. It's just the quiet and the stillness is when God or the universe will speak to us. That's when all of a sudden I'll have a really interesting creative idea, or something will
True.
come to me that probably I needed to make a decision about, and all of a sudden I get some clarity. So the stillness is really key.
I think that is something that I personally will take forward. Listeners, I hope all of you will take a moment and think about that and see how can you incorporate it into your world.
Mhm.
And I'll always say there's a great expression that goes, done is better than perfect. So think about how you can incorporate it. And if you get 30 minutes in and work up, if you get 20, if you get four, like don't say, I can't do an hour, so I can't do this. Find
Mhm.
something you can do.
Yes. And in that hour, I'm not always doing something. Sometimes I'm just sort of sitting there. I'm just sort of staring at. I live in Florida, so sometimes I'm just sitting out in the lanai and I'm watching the birds come in.
Ooh,
I mean, so it's
lovely.
it's not even like I'm actively meditating or having prayer time. Sometimes I'm just sort of just sitting there, just being.
And it's so interesting because, just kind of something came to mind as we were talking is Why is it so many of us say, oh my God, I had the greatest idea when I was in the shower. I had the greatest idea when I went out to take a walk, right?
Mhm.
Because those are those quiet moments.
Yes. It's also the time I think, I should reach out to so and so and see how they're
Yeah.
doing. And a lot of times that's when we make really good business connections.
Touche.
So
Touche. Okay. Denise, I really thank you. I admire so much of what you've done, the transformation of what you did in your career, in your life, and how you've changed it and gone and played so big.
thank you.
You know, listeners, what I say at this point in the show is take a deep breath in and let it out. Identify one thing, one takeaway from the conversation that Denise and I had that has been helpful or meaningful to you. Somewhere jot it down. It could be an old fashioned piece of paper. It could be any kind of technology, your computer, your phone, wherever you keep your notes, your reminders, whatever that is. And then define one action to take based on the takeaway. You join us weekly at Slater Success and Her Success Story. You will stay in consistent motion. That is one of the most important things we want to do in our lives, in our careers, in our businesses, is to stay in action. We should not be running a race, but we want our actions to be consistent. And that's where the support is. So, Denise, thanks again for joining me here today on Her Success Story.
You're welcome.
And listeners, if this was helpful to you, please feel free to share it forward with other people. Hit subscribe. We're in your inbox every Monday with new episodes of fabulous content like Conversations with Denise. You want to know more about Denise? Click on those links in the bio below and reach out. Create the connections, create the resources. Thank you for joining me here today.